Nadeem Bukhari notes, English novel. Henry Fielding. Fielding's concept of morality. Para number 1. Any piece of literature, whether in prose or poetry, is not without some specific point of view conveyed through it explicitly or implicitly. This specific point of view may be an approval or disapproval of certain doctrines, notions, attitudes, and approaches to life, both religious and secular. Henry Fielding, who is one of the most outstanding literary figures in the English fiction, is an exception to this broad literary principle pursued in creative literature indiscriminately. Para number 2. Fielding is the product of 18th century which is basically moral in outlook. It was essentially due to the influence of neoclassicism in that age. But at the same time, it was an age which brought about a synthesis between emotionalism and rationalism, and a new concept of morality began to emerge as projected by Fielding in his various novels. The traditional concept of morality is best represented by Richardson, where the new one is expressed by Fielding. Thus, if Richardson is a classical, then Fielding is a romantic moralist. Richardson's stress is on the institutionalized code of life or on conformity to wider social standards. He judges by the deed which has been done. Fielding, on the other hand, lays stress on the goodness of heart, the individual's conformity to his better self, and judges his characters by their motives. Thus Fielding believes in the moralistic function of literature, and he shares this with Richardson. Para number 3. It is generally maintained that excessive moralizing is ruinous to a work of realistic art. The first duty of an artist is to give a realistic picture of life as he sees and knows it. That the picture should to some extent be colored by his deeply felt convictions is inevitable, but the convictions must never be so ostentatiously expressed as to distract attention from the actual story presented. Always the picture is the main thing, the moral to be drawn from it is secondary. In short, a realistic fiction is artistically sensible when it is primarily moralistic. When we look at Fielding's novels from this perspective, we have no doubt about the fact that they are, first of all, a realistic portrayal of the social and psychological realities of people and their psyche. If there is any moral tone in the novels, it is felt indirectly. His novels seem to satisfy both the artistic and moralistic needs of the reader. But we should also notice that Fielding was not strictly a moral philosopher. His aim was not to elaborate a system for the learned, but to suggest some principles for a realist conduct of life. According to critics, the main influences in the formation of the moral philosophy of Fielding came partly from the Bible, the writings of Cicero and Lord Shaftesbury. Para number 4. However, Fielding has certain cardinal principles to propagate, of course, indirectly through his various novels. These principles are the beauty of virtue, satisfaction associated with virtue, the value of goodness of heart, the necessity of prudence in the conduct of life, and the existence of good as well as of evil element in human nature. Para number 5. The beauty of virtue according to Fielding is best demonstrated by means of examples. He maintains that example is a kind of picture, in which virtue becomes, as it were, an object of sight, and strikes us with an idea of that loveliness which Plato asserts that there is in her naked charms. However, he does not expect examples to be ideally perfect, as human nature is far from ideal perfections. Fielding may occasionally make fun of the trifling frailties which are sometimes associated with virtue, but never did he, in the slightest degree, depreciate the loveliness of virtue itself. But he makes no concession in exposing the repulsiveness of vice in the most scathing manner. Para number 6. In maintaining the advantage of virtue or the satisfaction associated with virtue, Fielding never associated himself with the teachings of prudential moralists that virtue is a sure road to worldly prosperity. He was aware that the good man by virtue of his goodness is often afflicted with great sufferings. Yet he contended that the good man, even in the midst of misfortunes, enjoys the inward comfort of mind which compensates for him the loss of gains achieved through vice. The highest happiness consists in the inward comfort of mind, and this inward comfort is obtainable only by virtue. Hence virtue is necessary for achieving the biggest happiness. While on the other hand, whatever material advantages it may have, does not bring real happiness, and therefore is not profitable. Para number 7. Fielding also attaches great value to the goodness of heart. Goodness of heart is the essential constituent of virtue in his moralistic philosophy. This notion of Fielding was highly misunderstood and thus criticized by many critics. In his emphasis on the goodness of heart, Fielding depends not so much on one's actions as on his motives and intentions, not on the quality of his conduct, but on the quality of his character. It has to do with the inner nature, with what the man intrinsically is, and with the real working of the heart. Para number 8. Although Fielding believed that goodness lies in the agent rather than in the action, he did not think that action was of no importance. The good man, he thought, must not only be good in heart and action, he must keep up a good appearance also. He is therefore required to exercise prudence in respect of all external actions. While Fielding allowed that the errors due to impedance are less heinous than those which spring from villainy, yet he was convinced that more people are brought to ruin by the former than by latter. Hence he took special pains to point out in his various novels the crucial importance of prudence in the conduct of life. Para number 9. In Fielding's times, the question of the essential nature of man was being hotly debated by ethical theorists. Whether man is essentially altruistic or selfish was the main controversy between Hobbes and Shaftesbury. Hobbes maintained that self-love is man's fundamental character. But the contention of the opponents of this view is that there exist in man both self-regarding affections and social regards. He believed that both self-love and benevolence are fundamental in human nature. In Fielding's view, then, normal human nature is made of both good and evil. And if in this compound, the good elements predominate, we should not condemn the whole on account of the intermixed imperfections. Even in good people there must be faults. So we should not look down upon them because of this. Para number 10. Thus we can see that Fielding's teaching on morals, if not highly exalted, is eminently sound and sensible. He never encouraged a person to aim at ideal perfection. This thought is impossible in this world of imperfections. He was content if he could persuade people to regulate their lives in general accordance with the dictates of right and reason, and was prepared to make liberal concession for their weaknesses which were in the main good and amiable.